Hi, I'm Lori Jones, President and CEO of Avasec Communications and host of StrategyCast. Join me and my guests, innovators, disruptors, and visionaries as we explore bold and brave marketing strategies that help you transform, scale, and grow your brand. My guest today is Jessica Hreha. She is, without a doubt, revolutionizing how businesses harness AI for marketing excellence. On this episode, Jessica will share how AI isn't just the future, it is now. Expect insider tips on enhancing content, slashing costs, and why risk-taking in AI could be your next best move. Unpack the secrets of AI in marketing with us. It's a must-listen to for leaders looking to elevate their strategy game. And don't forget to check out the most recent issue of the StrategyCast newsletter on StrategyCast.com. Just like this episode, it's full of inspiration and a ton of ideas that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.
A competitive edge starts with strategy, and strategy starts with knowing how to develop one. StrategyCast is a leading marketing podcast that serves up strategic insights, trends, and tips to help separate your business from the pack. Tune in weekly as host Lori Jones interviews bold marketing leaders who have priceless wisdom and are willing to share. Each episode explores cutting-edge approaches that have proven instrumental in transforming brands into industry trailblazers.
Welcome to StrategyCast. I am so excited to have Jessica Hreha on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Oh my gosh, you are incredible when it comes to AI. The background that you have is absolutely, I'm going to say it again, incredible. And it's just happened so quickly over 2 years. We're going to dive into today the intersection of AI and strategy, and there's no better person to get us there, Jessica. I'm so excited to have you really take us through a deep dive on this. And it starts with a very, very unique journey. Tell us a little bit about that journey and where, how you landed at Jasper.
Yeah, I like to share this story because I feel like I'm not an AI expert. There are people who have been in this industry watching this space for decades, right? AI has been around a long time. So where I want to start with you two, and just to let people know, you don't have to be a data scientist expert to step in and lead this type of transformation. 2 years ago, late spring, I was at a business lunch with some colleagues on a nonprofit board that I'm on. And we were trying to figure out the next time we were going to meet. And this marketing agency owner in Charlotte couldn't meet when we wanted to in July because he was at going to a marketing AI conference. And my reaction was straight up, a marketing AI conference? What? A whole conference dedicated to marketing AI? And he was like, yeah, it's a thing. It's a big thing. And I was like, huh. And then I kind of went on with my life. I took a Kellogg exec education course. I was trying to build my demand gen chops, and it was in digital marketing, AI automation, and data. And in that, they had us study a case study, and we had to write about it on Jasper. And I remember watching this video, and I immediately texted my friends at a startup company. And I was like, you have to use Jasper to ramp up your content production. I'll never get anything like this approved at VMware. And then I kind of moved on. And then a couple of months later, I found out that our product-led growth team, which some of that work was getting disbanded and moving on to my team, they were in a free trial of Jasper. And so all of that work moved on to my team, and we got the responsibility to really build the entire use case if we wanted to really use this tool. And I thought, I know that there's a way that we can use this. I found out that, agencies were using it, and I thought there's no way I'm going to let an agency use Jasper when I can do this in-house too, in a lot of senses, right? Because we were spending tons of money with agencies, and some of them, right, we end up editing the copy ourselves anyway. So we have these long, production timelines. We're not meeting our stakeholder goals. We're missing media brief deadlines, and everyone's kind of blaming each other. And I felt like there was this opportunity to increase content quality by spending less time on drafting, more time on editing, while also reducing costs. And I got it approved. And then ChatGPT happened. People in the company started freaking out, honestly. And like I picked up on some of these conversations and just pulled everyone together. And I was like, let's figure this shit out. We called it the Marketing AI Council. We created AI guidelines. We built up this entire AI literacy program because we believed that the foundation for responsible AI adoption starts with education. And we got our CMO on board as an exec sponsor. We did like a marketing AI leadership summit to build out use cases. We built out a piloting roadmap. All of this happened. And then with the acquisition of VMware last year, I had an opportunity to come over to Jasper. And for us, we went from 8 licenses to 765 within VMware. And I did all that with Jasper really as an extension of my team. And so therefore I felt like I was a part of their team too. So it was a really natural place to come over to. And I got really excited about the opportunity to help other enterprise customers do similar things to start to adopt and scale, because no one's ever done this before. There's no playbook, right? We're all kind of doing this from
there.
Yeah. And on top of our day jobs, what I was doing last year, I mean, I had my own content team of 9 direct reports, and then this marketing AI council of 35. It was not sustainable. So, I am here to help AI champions really kind of give them playbooks, give them sounding boards, share best practices that I saw, but then also that I'm seeing now across all of our other enterprise customers. So it's just a really cool place to be, to continue to talk about AI and marketing and help people through this change and transformation.
Well, and I think the first place everyone leans into is content. And certainly with generative AI, that's kind of a natural progression of what people believe is the low-hanging fruit. But there's
Absolutely.
much more when it comes to AI and transformation with strategy. So but a lot of people they've got this wait and see sort of mindset. It's not the time to wait and see because generative AI is here. It's here to stay. And quite frankly, it's only going to get better. What advice do you have for those individuals? Oh my gosh, we could have like 10 different segments right here on advice. But those that aren't adopting it yet, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I love how you put it too, because this is not a wait and see time. This is not like, let's wait and see how people do in the metaverse type of thing, right? New models are coming out every 4 to 8 months. GPT-4 came out 4 months after GPT-3. And GPT-3 was like, oh, it kind of helps us, right? But no one was talking about it replacing work. It certainly wasn't doing anything like creativity or reasoning. GPT-4 came out and everyone's like, oh my God, this can create and reason like a human. GPT-5 is going to be out around the corner, and it's supposed to be a similar kind of jump in the whole thing. And the reason why you can't wait and see is because experience creates understanding. This is why there's a disconnect in leadership with how you can really apply these generative AI use cases in marketing, but also kind of move some of this workflow integration or new ideation forward, is because they're not in the tools enough themselves to really understand what it can do. And that's where you're kind of seeing this grounds up swell in people who are building out those use cases. I think, the advice is beyond everyone knows, I feel like by now you have to jump in and use the tools, but they're like, so what do I do? And I think it's different for everyone. You can really look at like, what do I do every day?
Mm-hmm.
What do I do every day that I don't love to do? Like, that's a great place to start. Is what do I put off because I don't look forward to doing it? Or it's just this like grunt work type of thing. Like, find the use case for that. But the other big thing is you have to understand that it's not going to work exactly how you thought the first time that you go in there. So many people go in, they try something once, it sucks, and then they like move on. And that is the exact opposite thing. You want to really figure out like, okay, that didn't work. What can I do differently? How can I give it more context? What other information can I give? Can I show it what good looks like? Can I develop this framework or structure so that it knows what kind of output I'm looking for? You have to have the tenacity and kind of grit to be able to work through that, because once you work through that, now you have those time savings, cost savings. Ultimately, where we want to get to is that like, how can I how can I automate the routine
Right.
so that I can have more time to spend on strategy, creativity? And that's where the augmentation comes in. Yeah.
We're going to talk about some of our own agency use cases in a minute and what we've done with those. And before we get there, you mentioned something that I think is very, very important here. So you've mentioned AI as a tool. You've mentioned that AI also is getting to the point that it truly can reason like a human. Where does wisdom come into play here? So, imagine an executive with 35 years of experience jumping into a crisis comms situation that maybe has never happened before. There is a certain amount of experience and wisdom that must come to the table in order to even provide the right information into AI in order for it to provide you the ideation that might be helpful.
Absolutely. And there's so many cases where we've seen where AI gives you, maybe not exactly the right answer back, right? So what I like to say here too is that the experts in their field will be able to push AI systems so much further than people who aren't. So like exactly that use case, or, I talk about writers and designers. You have to know what good looks like, and you have to know what type of context needs to be there in order to even have a discussion, right, about what you could do. And I feel like in those scenarios, it's less of the AI telling you what to do, and it's more of the AI helping you think of anything that you might have missed.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's where we're using it the most is, there's certainly a lot of ideation and intellect still involved in ideation. And a lot of that intellect comes from, short learned wisdom or long learned wisdom. But the output when all those are combined is when the tool is very, very effective for you. And we're talking strategy and copy. We're also doing a lot of things when it comes to list build
Mhm.
or PR that, with associations that isn't necessarily in our PR database. So things like that are becoming really useful as well.
Yeah, and there's so many use cases, and I feel like every use case inspires another use case. And so it's like, what processes do we have today? What frameworks do we have? Where can we get better? I mean, do you even have a distribution kind of punch list every time you create something new? Are there any gaps in that? Can AI help you fill in those gaps? Oh, we never thought about promoting on this channel or doing it in this way. There's entire pre-content creation like we're talking about. So taking a marketing brief and your product release and creating the creative brief that that's really a strategy input before you even get to the campaign level in a case study production, figuring out how to ask better questions up front based on who you're talking to, what company it is, what products they're using, so that you can get exponentially better outputs even before we're talking about derivative content. But I want to go back to on what we were talking about on like where to start, because for leadership or practitioners, jumping in and like figuring out how to use the tool in your personal life leads to opening the mindset on your work life. But I would be remiss if I didn't bring up starting this marketing AI council, because you cannot do this alone. You shouldn't do it alone. Surround yourself with other people who are trying to figure things out as well, so that you can do this in a very cross-functional manner, but also it's people to help you create better ideas. You're not creating guidelines by yourself on this like swimming up river, type of situation. And then you're building all of that, you know, guidelines, proposals, right? Then you take that to your leadership team. And that's really how you can, exponentially drive adoption across an organization.
And it's very similar if you think about it when I think most agencies are early adopters. Those that are still around today have an early adopter mindset because technology is changing the way in which we've gone to business for 25 years now. It started with the internet 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then, social media. And so how we are marketing is completely tech-based for the most part. And so having that in mind when it comes to adapting AI as a tool and as a part of your tech stack, no matter if you are an enterprise organization, a startup organization, or an agency, is something very, very important to take in. We start with use cases. It's the best way to be able to, kind of wrap your head around it. And I believe, though, that you mentioned, or that you didn't mention, that perhaps your agency partner was going to, when you were with VMware, was MACON. And it's a very, very popular show with the Marketing AI Institute. We'll be there this fall. But it is one of the best ways for marketing folks to learn, agency or non-agency. So I just have to put a little plug in there because it's great resource for all of us.
Yes. And that's really how a lot of us started when we pulled this group of people together. One of my colleagues, and this group that came together in the Marketing AI Council, we didn't all work together. There's 765 or so FTEs, over 1,000 contractors, plus product marketing, the BGs, all this. Like it's a very large organization. But I found out one of my colleagues dove in on all of Paul Reitzer's certifications and webcasts and webinars and everything last December. And that my marketing agency friend who mentioned that he was going to MACON, this was in 2022, we met in December and had breakfast, and he gave me Paul and Mike's book, which must have been where I got the Marketing AI Council name from, because Paul was like, "You're very early in that." I was like, "I don't know. I read your book. Like maybe, that's where it came from." But like, then our first global enablement session, we actually brought Paul Reiser in to do a fireside chat with Mila, who's the one who dove into all of his content over break. And that was our first session from there. And then we had other fireside chats and other enablement sessions. We brought their intro to marketers course that they give every 6 weeks for free. We got a copy of that and pulled that into our learning management system, and it became a required KPI for the second half of last year. So we really wrapped a lot of our education and content around the Marketing AI Institute. Huge fans. Podcast Tuesdays mornings. They're like, that's my thing.
Well, and this is your second one, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And Mike Kaput was just on a couple of weeks ago. So that was awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's dive into some use cases. And where we always start out, and one of the, the precursors to this is a concept called the 5 Ps, and it ties to personalization, production, planning, promotion, and I think I'm leaving one out here. But if you really take a look there and you start there, and then you provide an offshoot categorically from that. So for instance, personalization, a category within personalization might be content marketing. A category within product or production may be content marketing. And then you build the use case from there, the amount of, time that you're spending on it, is it daily, every other day, weekly, the estimated hours, the existing tech that might be involved, then the monthly cost to the organization or to the client. And then what is the value to you if you are able to automate some of that through AI? So knowing that that is kind of the swing that we take on developing our use cases. So there's value to automate, by the way, and then ability to automate. Talk us through how you are going about developing these use cases with that framework in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a student of the Marketing AI Institute as well. We also look at a 4 quadrant, high effort, high value, low effort, high value, right? And kind of map out use cases within that quadrant. A lot of times, though, it's just getting the list going, right? And so you just want to start somewhere. And this is where, again, it's kind of working through that, and Paul has is it data driven? Is it repetitive? Is it generative? And there's one more, there's 4, as criteria, but it's like, as I was saying before, it's like, what is your process today? We all have KPIs because there are things we need to improve upon, right? So that ensures that then the problems you're looking at, the use cases you're looking at are aligned to your strategic goals as well by starting at like, what is your team's priorities, your KPIs? Okay, so then it's not the use, it's a bit of like, I feel like a mix of the use case model and the problem-based model, because then you get into, okay, what is the reason you're not hitting your KPIs today?
Right.
to very tactfully, we need to increase open rates, right? And then that's now you've got your use case to improve email subject lines, right? And open rates. And based on our audience personalization, you're going to do A/B testing and all of that kind of stuff. So I feel like that's another really great way to look at it. And a lot of times just getting people into a room and doing like sticky notes, breaking up into categories.
Yep.
This is what we did last year at VMware. I'm on site at a customer sales and marketing kickoff to do workshops with them tomorrow too, to say, okay, we're going to put everything down on sticky notes. And then from there, we're going to create our top 3 priorities. And then you give back to your leadership team kind of your piloting roadmap for how to move forward. And you're doing that within kind of some of that structure, like you talked about in terms of value and ability, and also then, priorities to the business.
Well, and I think you bring up subject lines, which has a lot to do with SEO as well. And one thing that we did just yesterday is we have a client that we're doing some webinars for, roundtable sort of webinars. And, he's written a few books. I mean, there's tons of different avenues that we could travel down. So what we did is we put a couple topics in line or I don't know if they use Perplexity. I don't know what was used. They could have used many different tools. By the way, chathub.gg is a great tool for pulling in Google, Chat, Perplexity, and 3 others and looking
Claude,
yeah, all of that, looking at the results of 6 AI tools at the same time, or at least 5, and then Google. But nonetheless, we put in some keywords. It spit out topics for us that were most relevant with a bunch of questions that were being asked today among the business audience. And so it tied in what is relevant today. It gave us better headlines than what what guesswork would have provided. And I think that's a key here, is that a lot of what we're doing, because it has to be done so quickly, is guesswork. And AI really mitigates some of that guesswork. It can really provide you far more direct approaches. And it provided us, key takeaways for each of those webinars that people can speak to as well. That took us, there was a lot of input and a lot of education that went into it, but it took us an hour to ultimately pull that information together, which with research could have taken 5 or 6 and a lost day. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. And then you don't even know with all that research if you got it all.
Yeah.
Right. So 2 things. We're doing similar SEO sort of strategy, research workflows with customers. And another one that I just saw was taking, you have a competitor who's ranking higher than you. So you're taking that page and then your page, and then you're also adding in Google's algorithms guidelines, right? It's like QRG, right?
Something like that.
I tried to get it beforehand. Yeah. Where it talks about like the guidelines around Google's algorithm. So it's getting knowledge around how it all works too specifically. And then it's giving you an analysis of why your page isn't ranking as high as their page in terms of like what other keywords you could do, structure, an entire like insights and then actions that you can take. Right. And so that's a lot of work that would normally get done. I sat in another one of our agency customers last week in Chicago, and they were trying to figure out like, there's got to be a way to take your meta campaign data and get analysis out of it. And it turns out within Jasper, they just weren't doing it exactly the right way for Jasper to be able to consume, which is why you need to know how these different LLMs and tools work and which ones are good at which, right? So I shared with them the process, had them walk me through how they were doing it, and then just tweaked one little thing. And it gave out all of these insights. We checked all of the data within the actual report. And they were like, this is incredible. They're like, I have to go back and tell my entire media room because this is going to completely change our workflows and our ability to now spend time on implementing those insights, right? That's what we miss out on usually.
Yeah. Well, and what you and I have just defined here is a far more strategic approach to what we're doing instead of just a very high level, here's the strategy, and then the guesswork below it. We can ladder up or ladder down, whatever, way you want to look at it, the strategy in such a more, a far more concrete way in order to quote unquote be on strategy with, in quicker timelines and quite frankly, I think better outcomes.
Yeah. I'll give you one more too, because it's another agency use case where the client didn't have any first party research or budget to create it. So they took all of their online reviews and then they scraped everything from Reddit. And now they're able to summarize all of that and at least have some data summarization to be able to give to their recommendations, right? Which are normally kind of gut reactions and recommendations. It's backed with data to make sure that they were on the right path with their own strategy recommendations. So it's so much on the front end that you can do to inform strategy, which is what you're saying too.
And directly from the customer's mouths. I mean, it does not get better than that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what tool they used for that?
It was Jasper. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. So we've talked about a lot of use cases, the incredible need for AI as a tool, what we can do to be more strategic with it, and the output that is really, really strengthened. And I think making, creating more relevancy for the importance of marketing in every boardroom right now. It's not about AI replacing marketers. It's about AI becoming an incredible augment to making marketers more strategic and stronger day in and day out, which PS affects revenue. That's the importance of where we're going. There are a lot of marketers that are shying away from this, but really they can use it to elevate their careers in AI. What advice do you have for them?
Absolutely. There is a huge gap in leadership right now within organizations to really lead through this change. To your point, a lot of people are shying away from it. And so you need people who are willing to experiment, to understand what use cases and what those applications could look like within your organization. And CMOs are looking for that leadership and that guidance. So you have to be willing to stick your neck out and take some risks. For me, it was getting a group of people together to originally nerd out literally what the invite said on generative AI. And then you have to have the guts to pop a meeting on your VP's calendar and pitch them the marketing AI council. But since no one has done this work before, they'll be like, thank you, it's yours. My former CMO is now a CMO at Dynatrace. And the first thing she did over there was tell them that they needed to set up a marketing AI council. And so her team of direct started saying, in-house, her team started saying, okay, we're going to appoint these people. And she said, no, you have to have people volunteer. You need to look for those hand raisers, the doers, the people who actually want to do this because it's above and beyond your day job. You still have to get your normal job done. This type of experimentation, the leadership, the uncovering is all on top of everything else. So you need people who are willing and excited about that opportunity and putting in that work. And what a great visibility, opportunity, leadership opportunity is for people to really step up and lead. I mean, even within VMware, for example, in terms of visibility, now, you're on calls with your CMO and her marketing leadership team, for example, regularly on calls with the CTO and CIO of a 35,000 employee organization, right? So that's the type of visibility and leadership that it can bring you. You just have to be curious, willing to test and learn, but then really stick your neck out and lead.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously we're talking about the marketing focus because we're a marketing show, but having that CTO involved, I mean, there is, AI processes from an operations standpoint, from an HR standpoint, it's not just marketing. It's focused on marketing right now because, it's the idea of marketing, directors being eliminated and AI taking over is such a provocative, talk track right now. That's not going to happen. I mean, those who don't adopt AI are going to get left behind, but that's no different than those that did not adopt digital marketing and, social media years and years ago. There's a reason why those agencies are out of business. They did not adapt to the changes in tech. And our listeners are adapting. Any one of your customers, they're adapting. They're using one of the foremost AI tools out there. So that's kind of a given. But every other department out there really should be assessing it in the same way.
Absolutely. And there's AI applications in every single function, across the business. And your CTO, CIO, they're going to set up an AI council too, and marketing should be a part of that. You still need one separately within marketing. The CTO, CIO council is going to be more risk and governance related. If you're a business that doesn't have AI in your product, you might not have already had ethics, AI ethics, which many of us have had for years because AI has been around for a while, machine learning in our products. But also, remember the CTO, CIO, they're going to want to enable general purpose horizontal solutions, across the board. Copilot, for example, from Microsoft, being pushed out. But I think marketers and marketing leadership especially need to take up a stand to make sure that you have the right tools for your department and your function. And I think that's one where a lot of times, we're being pushed certain project management tools. Smartsheet all of a sudden goes away in an organization. We have to flip our entire content inventories into something else. We don't get a say about that, but we get a say about our own MarTech stack, right? Our own CRM, our marketing automation. We should get a say in what generative AI system that we want to use that's built for marketers too.
I totally agree. And for those people that are listening today that might be the champion without a lot of AI understanding internally, or the one that has to bring it forward for all the different departments, you've developed a bit of an AI champions guide. So I want to talk through it really very, very quickly. We've already talked about identifying your focus area and use cases. Any advice on that very quickly before we move on to point two?
No, I think we covered that. You've
Yeah.
got to figure out what business unit, what team, what use cases. You have to start somewhere to build out your proof of concept before you scale.
And we've also talked, number two, about developing the pilot team. But the most important thing here is that it not just be you, the individual, the champion, that you're pulling in, whether if it's a small company, you're asking people or getting them to raise their hand, but have cross departments included, correct?
Yeah, and almost more importantly, because your marketing AI council could be slightly different from your pilot team, or your pilot team is a subset of, because actually it's really important to have IT and legal involved in that. So you need to have IT along from the very beginning so that they know what you're trying to do. Before you ever get like a vendor or procurement IT architecture review in front of them, they know it's coming. And then legal, so that legal's involved along the way. Do you have guidelines? What type of data are you allowed to put in systems or not? Nothing's a surprise. Nobody gets defensive because they're brought in right away. And then having that executive sponsor within your pilot team to understand that this is what you're doing. These are what your goals are, which kind of goes into the third, really understanding what your hypothesis is. As I said from the beginning, I thought that we could create higher quality content in less time and have an impact on our content performance while saving money on agency fees. So you have to document what the status quo is today. Right. What is the process? How long does it take you? How much does it cost? How many people are involved? That way, when you're done with your pilot, and you should be able to see results in 30 days and be able to make a decision in 90 days, at the end, it's very easy to go back into whatever it was, a PowerPoint slide, an Excel, a document, and fill in, okay, what was the result from an AI assist perspective? And then how many times a month, quarter, year do you do that? Maybe even how much does that cost normally? And then you easily have your time savings. For us, our case study production pilot, for example, times the number of case studies, that was the goal for the year. It's over $400,000 in savings. Wow. If we were to really bring that entire process in. But to some, cost savings, time savings might not be as big of a deal for leadership. So you have to continue to peel back the onion and say, okay, so what? So what does this mean? What does this mean? Maybe it means that I can now have time to do verticalization, which I've never done before. And maybe the leadership cares about that more than they care about the result of this other specific pilot. So that's how it's like an onion. You got to continue to peel those results.
And I think it's a really unique mindset for us. And for our clients, it's the time savings that allows us to do more of what. And that is where it's creating just such incredible efficiency that we're able to do what we haven't been able to get to, and quite frankly, within budget. So there's a lot
Mhm.
to be said with that. Obviously, setting up your brand and style guide and the context behind all of that, the knowledge behind all that is something that's very important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to give the AI systems context. And I'm biased, right? Jasper, I think, is really easy to do that in, right? But because there's less prompting and less prompt engineering skill set that you have to do that. People talk about having 3-page prompts of things, right? You have to show it what good looks like, but then you have to give it the baseline context of what your business cares about, your messaging guide, your campaign brief, but your brand and style guide, and what type of tones do you talk in? Do you use Oxford comma or not? All of that just helps your output be accessible or usable in terms of publish ready faster. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh, and that was just beautifully said. So way to go. We've got the process, we've got the council, we've fed, context into the system. And now we need to train the team.
Yeah, and you have to train a team, especially if you're in just a 2-week pilot, for example. I can't tell you how many times, and this happened with us last year at VMware. It's like you go through the 2 weeks and people never logged in. It's
Right.
like, or they're on vacation. Like you have to make sure your pilot team has the bandwidth set aside and they understand not only that they're a part of this, and this is 2 weeks, especially if you do have a limited time, but exactly what they're going to go in and do. I think a lot of times pilot teams come out and you have this cross-functional team of people in there, but they never logged in because they didn't have something right away that they were going to test out. And so you have to train them on not only how to use the tool, they need to know exactly what they're going to go in and test, but ultimately you want to train them, be training broader, right? As I talked about from an AI literacy perspective, on generative AI, how we got here, what it means, all of those types of things. But for your pilot team, it's really important to really make sure that they know how to use the tool and exactly what to do. So they're not sitting around for 2 weeks trying to figure out what they're supposed to be doing in there. And then, yeah, you've got to solicit your feedback and document those results, but you've already done the status quo part of it. So it's much easier to go back. But you've got a Slack channel, a comms channel. So you're talking throughout, asking, answering questions. So you're getting those good quotes that are things like, I never thought this was possible. Or I used to get so bogged down that I lost all of my creative energy to be able to get to the really good stuff. Like those are the nuggets too that I think leadership will hold on to. And that gets you to anecdotes like happier employees, in addition to all the time cost savings and performance improvements.
Another anecdote. So for the StrategyCast, we use 3 different tools to help us produce the show. I would say about 30% of production is human, 70% is AI. And with some of the content output, I was noticing, the human was noticing, looking at all of the show data, that show headlines that included the word strategy in them had a higher upfront peak in performance or downloads than those that did not.
Hmm.
So we taught the AI tool to utilize strategy in every headline that we have with the show now. And it is exactly what we thought was the issue. The more, we're using strategy in every headline, and the peak is happening with every show. So it's little things like that, the polishing of all of this that we're talking about, that is so important. And being able to take a look at it and notice nuances like that, I think takes a special mindset to be able to then take that information and feed it into the system and get the output that we're looking for.
What a great example of how, we talk so much about how AI pulls together those insights and those data points, but that's something that you guys saw, but then you taught the AI that. I love how that's, AI and humans coming together for smarter marketing and increased results.
Yeah, I agree. And it all happens with education. You have educated us so much today, Jessica. What a gift to the show, to our listeners, to everyone today, and I'm sure all of your coworkers and clients as well. What is some final advice for our listeners today on what a next best step would be for them?
The next best step overall is just to take action. I am a doer by nature, action oriented. And so what does that mean for you? If you're not familiar with how to apply AI into your daily work, then for you, it's logging in, it's picking a tool, it's paying $20 for GPT-4 personally, or I use all of them, right? So trying out all the systems, figuring out what works for you, and using it both in personal, so now you can apply it to work. If you're already doing that and you're already building use cases, the next best action for you is to pull together a group of people, start an AI, like figure out where you are in the journey and where that next step is. There's individual acceleration, team acceleration, and business acceleration. It's an S curve, and there are stagnation points along the way. So where are you along that journey? And think about what you need to do to go to the next step. And usually it's stepping up and taking some type of leadership action or more strategic thinking, more strategic process around it. And so that's what I would say. Figure out where you are and take the next step.
That's great. Thank you for that. And what is the best way for our audience to get in touch with you?
I'm great on LinkedIn. It's Jessica Hreha, Hreha. Happy to connect. And this is so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you. You've been a gift. And for those of you that want to get in touch with me, please go ahead and email me at Lori@StrategyCast.com and sign up for the StrategyCast newsletter at StrategyCast.com as well. Thank you all for joining today. And thank you, Jessica. Like I said, you've been an incredible gift.
Thanks, Lori.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We hope your strategic brains are spinning with new ideas and bold inspiration that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.